Okay, that's recording. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started in the interest of time. So thank you, everybody, for coming out on this cold, gross morning. We're all happy that you're here. So today, Mr. Verlich and I are going to be talking about the SAT and the ACT. We always joke that we got stuck with a not-so-exciting topic, so bear with us through this one. You want to click there? Okay. So everyone probably knows what the SAT and the ACT are.
Students, as you're entering the building, if you've been assigned Saturday school, please come to the office to collect your folders so you can get folders for your Saturday school.
So everyone probably knows what the SAT and the ACT are, right? You guys hear this all the time. Get your SAT scores up, make sure they're good enough, right? But just to go over so everybody's on the same page, what they are is they're two standardized tests that are measured, that they're designed to measure the likelihood of how successful a student would be in college. And they're used as part of the college application. And they're just a part of it. A lot of people place a lot of focus on the scores, but they're just one piece of the application. That's one thing I always tell my students to keep in mind. It's not the end-all, be-all if your scores aren't at a certain point. It's part of your application along with your transcript, along with letters of recommendation, an essay, an activity resume, things like that. So that's important to keep in mind too, because I feel like a lot of people place a lot of importance on this one piece, and it's just that, it's one piece of the application. So now we're going to break down the tests and tell you a little bit about what they each are and the differences between them. I'll trade spots with you.
Okay. And with the SAT, and I think that's the one traditionally a lot of our kids take, and that's offered by a company. It's, people always come to us and say, could you sign me up for the SAT? And we can't do that. It's a, basically an outside company called College Board. So the kids have to register, create an account through College Board, and then they can go ahead and sign up for the SAT. It's broken down into 3 sections: reading, math, and writing. And the writing is optional. And I know a lot of times we say, to the kids to sign up to take the writing just because, you might be looking at one school now that does not require the writing. But later on, you go to apply to a school and they want that writing score, so now you have to turn around and redo the test anyway. So, usually we recommend them to take the writing. A score of 1,600 is a perfect score, and that's on the reading and the math. So it's 800 and 800. And we do have kids. I know I have a kid right now. It's a senior, and I think he scored like 1590 or something was his total score. So basically, he missed one question on the whole SAT. And when they say, is my score good? And we always say that they put your face on the wall if you get a 1,300. So and I don't know if you noticed that when you came in, but there's a showcase there with kids who have gotten over a 1,300. So, and that's not like you have to have a 1,300 to get into colleges, but that's on the upper end of the scores.
Let's look at how to look up colleges.
We're going to go to the College Board.
Yep.
And Ms. Ponti, we're going to go to the College Board website, and if you look at individual colleges, you can pull up a profile for that college. Like, she's going to type the name of a college in, and you could do this from home. This isn't any kind of secret website or anything. Towson University, which is one a lot of our kids look at, and you come down, and I think it's applying, and then SAT scores, and it's going to give you a breakdown of sort of, where a lot of their kids are hitting as far as the SAT. So you can see a lot of them are in the 500 to 599 range. And this is for math.
No, it's for writing.
Oh, it's for writing? Okay.
The top part, I feel like it's better. Spots.
Okay.
You have the microphone, so you guys see that.
Oh, this is a microphone too?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that. So, but you could see that, the kids are on the upper end, but, they don't have to be totally at the top either. Okay, but it definitely helps. The higher your score, it's definitely going to help you in the long run, But this is information that's out there, and on this same page, if you could go up, it also talks about GPA and academics. So if you're, kids at the same time are wondering what kind of grades do I need, and again, you could see that, as far as GPA, what they're looking at. So, when kids come in and they've got like a 2.5, they're definitely at the lower end of trying to get into Towson. So, and your students are juniors, so they could still, raise their GPA at this point. But the further we go, the harder it gets. I mean, it's the more grades you have, the harder it is to change your average. So that's just something to be thinking about. as they go.
Also, on an unrelated note, this is a good tool too, this AP tab. This will tell you what for the AP exams, what scores they have to get and what it'll transfer as. This could be really useful too. Because some schools will accept 3s and 4s, some schools want 4s and 5s. And then it'll show you, like, obviously, like for bio at Towson, you would get 8 credits instead of 4 if you got a 4 on the exam versus a 3. So this could be a really useful tool, and I know it's a little bit late because they changed the way kids are signing up for the AP test, but this could be really useful, you know, to kind of know what kids need to get as scores as you're kind of deciding who's going to take what exam. So, and that could be really motivating.
Not that they do this, but if you come into your senior year with schools, you'll know which ones you have a good chance at, which ones are a long shot, you know, and you can kind of find a balance. So that's why we tell the kids to do their research ahead of time. Not that that always happens. So you're not applying to just, you know, one, and you're kind of having a balance of things that are reach, things that you're solidly in, and kind of.
And that kind of research should be happening now.
Yeah.
For you and your kids. It shouldn't be happening in August. It shouldn't be happening in September. It shouldn't be happening in the fall. You know, you should sort of know where you're applying and have a plan at that point.
I always tell my kids when they come back to school, like with their first day of their senior year, I should be able to ask them, where are you applying to? And they should be able to give me a list of where we're going to be applying to. Because at that point, we don't want to be focusing our time and energy on figuring out where we're going to be applying. We want to be focusing our time and energy on actually doing the applications. But that's a whole different battle. So that's a pretty good plan. Want to go back to this?
Yeah, let's get back to our. Okay, and just too, it talks about, and I don't know if you go back. Oh, we're back there, right?
Yeah, we're in there.
That there are some prep opportunities out there. Khan Academy has some online resources that you can access, and I think a lot of the kids use Khan Academy in their classes now.
That's a free one too. That's really good. They can do practice tests on there. So it's really personalized and geared towards what they need and what is good for them.
Yesterday I saw that on the College Board they have a new app that you can have like a daily
Question of the day, right? You can sign up for
So they can even put something on their phone and then a quick like 5-minute thing each day from now until they're starting to take it. Just like that way it's not like, oh, I have to sit down for a half hour, take a practice test or anything like that. Just a daily little check. I don't know that they have something for sure for that ACT.
The ACT doesn't seem to have as much resources
in
as
terms
the
of
like
that.
prep and things like that as the College Board does. But that's not to say it's not out
And
there.
I was going to say, even if they do the SAT, you're not going to get like the science part for the ACT, but it's going to help you on the ACT too for the English and the math. That's not going to not benefit you.
And sometimes too, it's not about like relearning material necessarily, but like for some of our kids, if they're in Calc 1 or even pre-Calc, the math is going to be primarily like algebra based. So it's a matter of them kind of seeing the material and kind of familiarizing themselves with it. So it's not a matter of like learning it, it's a matter of reminding. You know what I mean? So that's why I feel like Khan Academy is good because it's free.
And that's why we too, you know, when we talk to the kids and mentioning it to you, is to take it a couple of times, because that way they take it once they sort of see what's on there, because they're going to see some stuff probably from like 8th and 9th grade, and they're going to be like, man, I haven't done that in years. But after seeing it and doing it and maybe not being ready for it, now they know what to go back and get ready for the second or third time they take it.
Yeah, the first time I think you're getting tested on the test too. Like if you haven't been exposed to that, you kind of like learn the style of the test as well. Whereas the second time, you know how long it's going to be, what that it looks like, and then you can really focus on the content.
Right. One other opportunity for preparation is something called the Answer. It's an SAT prep course. It's offered by the PTO here at school. It's an outside company. They come in. I think it's $150, and it's like an all-day Saturday program. And usually they run it right before an SAT.
That's coming up in March. I don't know the date offhand, but it's sometime in March.
And the thing is if and here's something too, if your kid doesn't get the chance to take it here at Calvert High, if you just Google the Answer SAT, it's a company that they offer these preparation courses all around.
Students who have been assigned Saturday school, your folders are in the main office to pick up.
All around the Washington area. So if you don't take it here at Calvert High, you can sign up to take it at Southern High in Anne Arundel or you know, Leonardtown, wherever it's offered. You just have to get there. It might be on a different day. It's almost every Saturday, really. It's just different places.
You said it's in March, but is Calvert High still offering the test on the 2nd of March?
The second,
We'll talk about that in a second.
okay,
But that's a further slide.
okay.
So. Are we good with this one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. All right, so another, do you want to talk about this?
Okay, yeah, right.
Okay.
So, and then there are subject tests whenever you go to sign up for the test. You really don't want your kids to sign up for the subject tests unless you know that they're applying to a college that requires it. You're just going to sign up for the general, I think it's called general knowledge, SAT, which is the reading, the writing, the math part. But sometimes kids will apply for specific programs at schools. Usually they're sort of higher level schools, maybe like a Harvard or a Brown or somewhere like that. Kids trying to go into chemical engineering, and they might require them to take the SAT chemistry section or the SAT physics, whatever. So that's not something you really need to worry about. They'll usually, like I said, they'll specify that on the application if you need that. And at that point, then you'd need to sign up and take that separately from the general test.
This isn't really common though. In my 7 years here, I think I've had one student who needed these. So more than likely, this won't be something that's required. All right, now we're going to talk about the ACT. So the ACT is very similar to the SAT. The biggest difference is that the ACT covers science. So it's got English, well, reading, writing, math, and then science is the additional part. The scoring is a little bit different. 1 to 36 is what the score is, like the range is on the ACT rather. And then the composite score is what that score is. When people say, what's your composite score? It's that score of 1 to 36, because each section is graded separately, but the biggest thing is that composite score, so it combines everything. And the same thing with this too, like what a good score is depends on what a college wants, really. I mean, that's what I always tell my kids. Your score is only good enough if it gets you into where you want to go. You know what I mean? If a kid comes and says, I really want to go to Duke, their score requirement's going to be really different than someone who wants to go to Towson, say. So that's the other thing. It's important to really look at the college and really, know what they require. Now on the College Board website, which we looked on earlier, they've got all those resources on there for the SAT. Occasionally something will pop up on there for the ACT, but they're kind of opposing companies, so they don't always have that information. The ACT doesn't have a college search the same way that College Board does. So this may be information that you may have to reach out to a particular college with, look on their website, that kind of thing, to really get what a typical score is. But it should be something that they should be able to tell you or potentially have on their website. It's not like secret information on what they usually look for.
Usually if a composite is in the 30 range or a little bit better, that's like a 1300 kind of score.
Yeah.
If you want to say something equal to what we get you on the wall.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So. And a lot of times too, people will say, well, the ACT is for schools like on the West Coast. That's really not true. I feel like most colleges use both pretty much interchangeably. Now, sometimes they will be particular and say, we really want you to take this, but I've not really seen that. I mean, have you guys?
No, and I know from my own, my son's experience going through, he was sort of an average to not too good of an average student. He took the SAT, he probably got 1,000. He turned around, took the ACT, and got like a 23, which equated to a much higher score. So a lot of times the kids will use the ACT. If they're not scoring on what they want on the SAT, they'll take that ACT to see if it can give them a better view, a better chance of getting into college. I mean, if you take the SAT and you get a 1,500, I really wouldn't.
I wouldn't waste my time.
You know what I mean? But if you're looking to get into a maybe a higher level or have a better chance of getting in, that's probably where I would use that. Or unless the school's saying I want you to take it.
Because that's the thing. I mean, students are going to not want to take a whole bunch of tests because it's a lot of Saturdays and it's a lot of pressure. But you really never know what you're going to do better on. And that's the whole point of the game in taking the SAT and the ACT, is to make them look good as an applicant. And you really never know what they're going to do better on. So it's always a good idea to have them take both. They won't be thrilled about it, but it's not a bad idea.
All students should be in their first period classes. Teachers turn on live stream and have a great day.
I think we kind of talked about, we kind of covered this slide a little bit, but the main difference is, though, the biggest thing is that the ACT has the science. That's the biggest difference between the two. And then scoring, we talked about how they're just different. And then the ACT tends to cover less material, but a little bit more in depth, like not as many subjects necessarily, but it's more in-depth kind of knowledge. The ACT is kind of surface level. I don't know, is that what I'd say?
I always heard that the SAT is like Algebra 1, Algebra 2 geometry. I think if you take the ACT, they're going to go beyond that, into some higher math. So for the kids who have taken the higher math, the higher sciences, because it's got the science section, they might get, benefit from that, so.
So, and then we talked about which tests to take, but I mean, really, best policy is to have your students take both if you're in a place where you can do that. So, how and when to register? Do you want to talk about this?
Sure.
I know I've been talking for a while.
Okay. So again, you're going to have to go on either of those sites, SAT, which is College Board, or ACT, onto their website. You're going to have to create an account. I would recommend you probably sit down and do that with your student. That way, you and they both have the password, have the access. Because I can't tell you how many times we've had a situation where a kid comes in and the deadline is midnight on a Friday. They want to register, and they can't get into their account because in 9th grade they created an account and they can't remember their password. They don't remember their email that they used. So we end up on the phone with College Board because they're very, if you think about it, you've heard all this, like the cheating scandals with the SAT and stuff. So they try to keep a pretty tight lid on it, so you can't just go in and create 3 accounts with the same name or for the same person. So they're pretty tight as far as, if there's an account for this kid, they're not going to let them create another account because they're worried, I think, about cheating. So, we have to get on the phone, call them, and usually talking with them, we all get it all reset and get it straightened out. But, it'd be much easier if you and they sit down together, you create the account, you have the information, so if there's ever any problems, you can still pull it up, access it, and help them get registered too.
Or if they don't know their username and password, to do it now versus the day of the test time, because their hold times at College Board are really long when it's not like a test registration day. So giving them ample time too, I think, is a big. You had a question.
I registered her for the ACT, but is it 2 separate registrations?
Yes.
Two separate tests, 2 separate websites.
It's like buying got a Chevrolet and a Ford over here, 2 separate companies basically, and they're both trying to sell their services. But you'd have to create an account, when they go in, it's going to ask them as they go through. The first thing they do you have an account? If not, you have to create an account. That's a step unto itself. Once you've created the account, you're going to go back in, and now you can sign up for the test. And it's going to walk them through a whole list of questions like, what kind of school do you want to go to? Do you want to be in a rural area, a city area? Do you want to go to a religious school or not? It takes a little while to do it. It's not something you can do in like 3 clicks.
Give yourself an hour.
You won't have to do that again, though. That's the good news. But that first time will take a little bit.
At the end, the kids have to when they're registering, they have to upload a picture of themselves because then they're going to print out an admission ticket for the test. The picture they can't have a hat or a hood on. We had a kid show up to the test one day, his picture had a hat on, they wouldn't let him take the test. So just be cognizant a little bit of all those things. Big thing too is deadlines, and I think, is there deadlines on the back of the handout that you got, or all the ACT registration dates, deadlines, and late deadlines, all that good stuff.
Tomorrow is. Yeah, usually it's somewhere in the county,
It's usually a big location.
but I feel like Cunnington is too.
Maybe.
I was gonna say, it's probably either within the southern Maryland area or somewhere.
There's one in Great Mill, Huntington, and the College of Southern Maryland. In Huntington.
There you go.
I did Huntington, which is in April. And yeah, that thing, filling out the whole questionnaire was like, really long.
But, again, we say be conscious of the deadlines. Plan to take it more than once to get your best score. And I guess that's one of the reasons why we started sort of doing these seminars in the morning and talking about SAT as one of them, is because, I've got kids now that are seniors, and I say, have you taken the SAT? Well, I'm going to. Okay, it's January of their senior year. That's a little extreme, but really, you really want to have. My thing is probably taking it twice before the end of your junior year. Is that sort of what you guys are sort of thinking?
Yeah, I think the same.
Now they're going to offer it for free here to all juniors, right?
Yes, on the 25th of March.
March 25th, okay? So that'll be an in-school event. So when the kids are here, all the juniors are going to, and I'm not quite sure how they're going to sign up. I don't know if we know that yet.
Learn on Monday.
Okay.
I'm still going to create an account on Monday for the SAT.
May not be Monday, but
one day.
we're gonna figure out what.
We're going to find out how that's all going to happen because
Pretty brand new, this is the first time they're
Yeah.
gonna be doing
So
this.
she still might have time.
But March 25th is going to be a good time, they can take it for the first time if they haven't, and then sign up June.
You get your scores by the May or June
May,
test, so
right,
you kind of know what.
The only thing is that when they take it at school, there's no writing being given. So it's just the basic SAT.
but it takes about three weeks or so to get your score. So, and that's why if you take it in like the beginning of March or even the end of March, by the beginning of May, you're going to have your score.
Mm-hmm.
You could turn around and register for the June test. So that gives you 2 times by the end of the year.
And the May and June SATs are here. They're our first year at Calvert High, so that's good too.
So,
See your super score, and if you wanna bump it a little bit, and you can try to do, they don't usually do a July test, they do have like an August.
They have a July test.
Oh, they do this year?
I think they do.
they used to,
That's new.
That was new last year.
Yeah, or no, June and August.
June, right.
ACT has July.
In March 25th, the date. March 25th here.
But I know it used,
We're not sure how that will happen yet, but that's what it's told us.
But it used to be there was a June test, and then there wasn't another test till October. But now they've added another one in there. A couple other things, like I said, we said have your scores ready by the end of your junior year. You could send scores free to 4 places when you register for the SAT. Now, a lot of times when the kids are signing up to take the SAT for the first time in March, they don't really know where they want to apply. If you're sure of some places, you can have them sent. But
I feel like another thing some kids say too is I don't want to send my scores because I don't know if I'll do good. But here's the thing. Say if the kids take it 3 times, if they send it after the 3rd time, the college gets every score report anyway. Because that score report that gets sent includes every test date anyway. So really, it doesn't matter. I would encourage them to send it because the college is going to see it anyway, and it may save you some money.
Don't they pick and choose, like you took 4 different tests, but you did an 800 on one, 200 on another.
they'll usually pick the best, yes.
Super scoring, that's called, pulling out the best score, even if it's not from the same test date.
And then with fee waivers, we have them in guidance. They're available if you have extenuating circumstances like financial circumstances. I know for us, free and reduced lunch is like an automatic qualifier for a fee waiver. Tell the kids to come see us, and we give them, it's a little card, and basically there's a code number on it. And whenever they go to register for the test at the end, they put that code number in, and that pays for their test. So they can use it twice. So to me, I'm giving you $100 if I give you that fee waiver. So, because it's basically $50 a time.
They
So.
can use that throughout all their tests. now.
Just for 2.
Oh, it's just for
Just
2?
for 2.
Oh, last year they said it was 4. I'll tell you that.
2 times.
Okay.
They're cheap. They won't share that much with
Okay.
students.
Sending it to the colleges, because when I registered for the ACT, we did have that question, if you want to send to college, we put no right now. But do you go back in there to pick the colleges when you're ready, or?
You can do it, I think, up until, it's like 3 or 4 days after the test date, like after she sits for the tests. But I'm pretty sure you can do it up until that point, go back in and redo that. Worst
What if
case,
you don't?
If you do it 4 months later, you can do it, but it's gonna
You
cost
have
you
to pay for it.
$15 for every school you send it to.
It just costs money for you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
She doesn't know the schools yet.
Yeah, and sometimes
So
they
there's
do,
really
sometimes
not-
they don't. Where sometimes a student will say, oh, I really want to go here, and then senior year, they go in a total different direction, so. But it's all just kind of to save you guys money, so if they kind of have an idea, use those. You have those 4 free ones, use them. That would be my advice. Ready to flip? So this is something that we're seeing more and more is that colleges are becoming test optional. Salisbury is a big one. They've done it. And generally, because I know a lot of students are excited about this, but generally they're going to make you do something else because they're not requiring you to have the SAT or the ACT. So I know Salisbury, what they require is a student to have, I think it's a 3.5 GPA at least, and then I think they have to have 1 extra letter of recommendation.
A lot of times a writing sample,
Mm-hmm.
they want a writing sample sent in.
So this could be a cool thing for students who maybe don't test well. They have another option. But one thing I'll tell you guys is with the SAT and ACT, I feel like, and I don't know what you guys think about this, but I feel like the biggest use for the SAT and the ACT really is like scholarships. So a certain SAT puts you on a certain tier for scholarships. So I wouldn't, if your kid says, well, I don't want to take the SAT, you don't have to be like, well, you can look for test optional schools. I would still encourage them to take it. But this is maybe a good fallback if they're not a good test taker or those scores really aren't there, but they're, really strong in some other areas. Do you want to talk about FairTest?
I just, and we don't really
more about that.
really use it that much, but if you're wondering what schools are test optional, there's a website, FairTestorg, that you could go to, and it'll tell you all the schools in the country that are test optional. It'll also tell you what they want in place of the test usually. And there really are a lot of them out there. I mean, pages and pages and pages, but I don't know if that's where your kid wants to go, and I wouldn't just pick it because it's test optional.
Right. I feel like there should be like a backup kind of option, if you
Right.
will, versus like this is what we're shooting for kind of thing, But it is a good fallback to have if the SAT scores and things don't look as good as you want them to. This could be a good option to look into.
And then the school day SAT, we already talked about that. It's March 25th. All juniors will take it. It's free, and there will be no writing section. So, and right now we're still getting information in on that as far as the whole process, how it's going to look. And I don't know is there a way we're going to communicate that to parents?
Yes, so we'll probably do like in the parent newsletter that goes out, there'll be information, the kids will be given information, probably
Messenger, maybe?
message from the principal where he comes on and sends you that message, recorded message, we'll probably send that out to all junior parents. So we'll do everything we can so that everybody knows what they need to do prior to the test.
Will the PTO be sending out something about the prep day?
I think they usually do, and I think that comes out on the newsletter as well. Yeah.
And I think a lot of times that's on the school website
I
too.
think it is too. But if you Google the answer, it'll come up. Answer SAT course, it'll come up.
And then see you in February.
So
I guess.
Our next session will be February 13th, and we'll have Michelle Kidwell, who's from Chesapeake College Plan, which is an organization that comes in and she can support students as they apply for college and the different things they have to do. So she's a great resource. And she'll be talking about what college applications look like and what you all can expect from the process of actually sitting down and doing an application.
What questions do you guys have? And I'm wondering, like, are you worried about anything like I haven't done this or I haven't? Because I know when my kids were going through the process, and I think that's what a lot of parents are like worried, like, when should I take the SAT? So you're worried. That's why you're here, because you found that out. But what other things are you wondering about? Like, do we need to do this or do that?
Can you recommend, like, what type of people should he get recommendation letters from? Teachers?
Teacher, and I guess you could even go, if he's got any idea of where he wants to apply, maybe just take a look at some of those applications, because some of them will be like no letters of reference. Some will be, I know like Maryland wants a counselor and a teacher. Someone, I think Towson is just one person.
Two people.
Could be, or two, it could be anyone, So it depends. What I always say is, like, for the kids, and hopefully they've done this by now because they're going into the second half of their junior year, is to try to make like some kind of connection with one of your teachers or a couple of people here. And they probably all have like someone they go to at lunch and hang out with, maybe someone who they go to more often when they need help with a class. Those are people who probably know them better, and know what they've done, know their accomplishments, because you don't want it to just be
Generic.
they get a resume and they just write bullet points. Student did this, student did that. You want it to be personal, to try to find, it might be a coach, if a kid plays a sport, right? A lot of times coaches have known the kids for 3 or 4 years, so they have a really good idea of who the kid is and their character and things like that. So
I like to tell somebody, if you can get somebody from math or science and somebody from the humanities and, coach, because when you get to the scholarship process, like, you can apply for the scholarship, but the letter has to be from your science teacher or something like that. So if you already have a balance of those kind of letters, you can just put them in the right scholarship. Some of them do ask for somebody who is outside of the classroom. So they do ask for a coach or someone at church or someone outside the classroom.
but I would say too is ask early.
Yeah.
Don't talk to your kids about, don't wait till, you need your application sent in, uploaded on the computer on Friday, and on Thursday they're saying, hey, I need you to upload the application, and by the way, I need a letter of recommendation. Because that's, and for
It's happened. Day before Christmas break, I was writing one.
But I mean, and for us as guidance counselors, that's the piece that takes the most time. Like sending their transcript, all that stuff is like a couple of clicks, But to write a letter, we want to do a good job, and even, and some kids I know really well, I could sit down almost without anything they've given me and write, a pretty detailed letter. But there are some kids that they really don't come through guidance that much, but we still need to write a letter. So they, maybe even tell them to come down and talk to us a little bit ahead of time, versus that last minute thing.
No, actually, too, starting today, we're going to meet with juniors in their English classes to go over kind of all of this junior breakfast stuff with them about the process and the SAT and, what they should be doing. So that would be a really good conversation point, too, because I think it's by the end of January, right, we'll be done?
With everybody.
With everybody. So we'll talk to them about like what they need to do next year for classes, what they have to do to graduate, and then also kind of what they can be doing now to prep for life after graduation. So that's a really good thing too, because you guys are hearing this, but then your students will be hearing it too. So then you can sort of nag them and say, hey, what did they tell you? To make sure that they're working on it.
On the subject of the letters, can they copy them? I mean, okay, so just keep a little file.
Oh yeah, and a lot of times too, I feel like colleges in different places want them electronically. So like if a student applies on the Common App, which is like an electronic like application that students can do for multiple colleges, we'll go over that the next time. But we can like upload our letter on there, so the student actually never sees it. But sometimes, which I would say is probably not as common, students need a physical copy. Maybe more for scholarships, would you guys say?
Right.
But and when we write them kind of so they can go for scholarships or colleges. We're not going to write it specifically for one school. Less work for us.
And it'll ask them, just sort of piggybacking on that, as they go through that application, especially with the Common App, it always asks, do you want to waive your FERPA rights? Okay, and basically they're asking, do you waive the right to see what the teacher writes about you? Okay. Now we've always been told from the colleges that they would prefer a letter where the kid waives their rights, so they know they're getting a true measure of what the kid is. Now, I pretty much write the same thing regardless, but that.
I think it has more to do with the college than with us necessarily.
So.
So, should they ask now for letters or towards the end of the year?
I would say toward the end.
Yeah, I have some kids will come like the very end and say, hey, over the summer, can you write this?
Okay.
I love those students who ask for it over the summer. That's the best time to do it. Yeah. Do you want to share?
I don't know, is there any parents that are my age or be blessing? So I won't be here probably in the fall at the very beginning, because I'm going to have a baby in June. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to come back up because we have summer days and stuff. Once I'm healed up and everything and set, my husband will be able to be home. So I'm going to try to write as many recommendations for my senior years as possible in summer. I'm going to tell them all that when I meet with them in these next couple of weeks, so that if they can get me at the end of the year or in the early summer, they can email me just their forms so I can write them up so they can get it from me and not necessarily one of the other counselors or an intern or somebody like that. Okay? That's it.
And we won't be out, but we still like it early.
Mine is just more so like, so
Yeah.
I can write it for them. So
Yeah.
this will be the third year of knowing them,
Do you prefer them to ask in person or just send you an email?
We actually have a form.
Yeah.
And we'll go over that with the students too, but if you look on the guidance website, it's like a resume type form maybe. It asks them certain questions about like what kind of stuff they do, how they would describe themselves, just gives us some more information. Because we found too, sometimes even if we know a student real well, sometimes there'll be a piece of information that we don't know. Like I had a student a couple years ago who I felt like I knew really well, and on his little form he wrote that he was an Eagle Scout, and like that's something really that I would want to talk up in his letter, but I would have never known that had he not filled out this form. Plus for us too, it's a matter of paperwork too. Then we know they asked on this date, and it's like a formal kind of process for us.
Even
But
they can use that for anybody that that's one thing, like fill that paper out and you can make photocopies and then anybody they're asking, give that sheet to.
We'll even copy it for them,
Yeah.
because I know some kids want 3 copies of the paper because they think they have to write it out 3 times, and we're like, no, we'll.
And you can
We
use
don't want
it,
that.
and they can even start filling it out now and then.
Yeah.
If they get awards like this year or something like that, the end of June, just add to
So there's a copy of that on the guidance website that they can type right into it, or if they prefer to write it, they can print it out and do that, or we have copies in the guidance office. They can
They'll
stop
all
and
be,
get
when
one.
they come down for their meeting, they'll be able to see that and grab it then.
Well, some of them already have different types.
I think we're
What
good.
other questions do you guys have for us?
Would you say that the SAT is a good, I don't know, an indicator maybe of how they might do on the SAT?
I think it's usually pretty good.
Supposed to be.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I feel like it always I feel like the PSAT ends up being a little lower than the kids do sometimes.
Really?
That's my
It just
take, but I
depends.
might be wrong. You know, I don't know.
And
And I
if you
think-
take it as a ninth grader, you might not even had all the maths
Right.
and all the vocabulary, you know, so of course you're gonna do better.
I think it's good practice
Yeah.
for the situation. You know, of like doing the test, doing the sections, you know, getting familiar with that, and I think that's part of what, you know, helps.
They do offer the test too after the class for the answer prep, the answer SAT. I signed up for it, and last year.
Like a practice
Yeah.
SAT, you're saying? Okay.
They do a practice one, and his
Okay.
score even increased from his first PSAT test,
I didn't know that. That's cool.
so.
I think the thing that kind of throws a lot of kids when they take the SAT or the ACT is that it's like Saturday morning, they have to be there, I think, at like 7:30 or 7:45 or something, so it's early, they're nervous, and they go in, if they're potentially at another school, that's intimidating, they don't know where they're going, they might be in a room with a bunch of people they don't know, they may be in with a proctor they don't know, so I think just getting over that hurdle of how like official kind of the whole test process is, sometimes that can be a really hard thing for students too. So that's why we suggest too to take it more than once, because then when they go in the second time, they kind of know what to expect a little bit. Sometimes that throws kids off though more than the actual material on the test, right? Would you guys do
I
that?
think so. I think
You know?
some kids just have a tough time with tests.
Yeah. So one other thing too, we use Remind 101 to get information out to students, because we have like some juniors who are at the CTA, so if we put stuff on the announcements, they don't necessarily hear it, because they don't play our announcements, the Calvert High's announcements down there, or like this will continue into next year, so if a student has early release or late arrival or something, this is kind of how we communicate with them. So we do a Remind 101, so if you guys would like to sign up for that, you're more than welcome to. And we'll send things out like, hey, this is the ACT deadline, or next year maybe things like, hey, here's the website to order your cap and gown, you know, different things like that. And when we meet with your students, we're also going to be taking their email addresses. So we'll be emailing them from time to time with the same sort of information too. So you can pester them on that and say, what's your counselor sending you? So, because we have to get, you know, we don't have a classroom, we don't see them every day, so we have to get creative on how we get our information out. Any other questions?
All right.
We want to thank you guys for
Yes.
coming.
See you next month.
We'll see you on February 13th.